Iran's supreme leader says his country delivered a heavy slap to the U.S. face in his first public comments since the country's ceasefire with Israel brokered by the U.S. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said today that the U.S. gained no achievement when it joined the war with Israel against Iran. Meanwhile, Donald Trump responded by calling the Iranian attack very weak and claimed to have intercepted 13 of 14 missiles fired. In a post on X after the attack, the Qatari Foreign Affairs Ministry spokesperson Majid Al-Ansari added that Qatar's air defenses successfully thwarted the attack and intercepted the Iranian missiles, and there had been no casualties. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has threatened to respond to any future U.S. attack by striking American military bases in the Middle East in his first public comments since a ceasefire with Israel was declared. In a message to the Iranian people, he said Donald Trump's demand for Iran's unconditional surrender at the start of the conflict had revealed America's true agenda. And as tensions soar following U.S. military action against Iran, Republican Congressman Ralph Norman defended President Donald Trump's decision to launch the strike, framing it as a bold and necessary act in the face of mounting threats. Mr. Norman argued that the strike was fully justified and expressed frustration with what he sees as past administration's failure to confront Tehran directly. According to the congressman, the U.S. show of force was not only a strategic move, but also a moral one that signaled strength and leadership. Mr. Norman went even further, suggesting that President Trump's actions merit international recognition. Looking ahead, he warned that Iran must not view the strike as a temporary disruption. Quote, if they think that after this they can basically go back to enriching uranium and having a nuclear weapon, that's not going to work, end quote. And I continued further, quote, I think if they realize now that Donald Trump means what he says, end quote. Joining me is Ambassador Joe Keshi. He is former Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he joins me to discuss these tensions and how it affects Africa. Good to have you join us, Ambassador Keshi. The Middle East is fast becoming a theater of war. What do you make of escalating tensions and external interferences, as it were, of the U.S. and Iran?
Thank you for having me. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, please, I can hear you, Ambassador.
Yes. Well, you know, let's just say that the first round has ended and that somewhere along the line, this war will repeat itself, particularly if the two belligerent powers do not feel that they have achieved their core objectives on both sides. But I think the question I've always posed is the fact that the global system that was established after the Second World War is gradually changing or collapsing. And unfortunately, there is just nobody, not even the United Nations, that can hold the world together. And so you have a situation in which might is right, and those with the powers to do whatever they want to do are just displaying, you know, naked power all over the place, particularly the state of Israel. And so you have a situation where an unprovoked Iran, yes, Iran is developing, has been developing nuclear capabilities. It doesn't have a nuke yet, but it's been in this game for years. But you also have someone like the Prime Minister of Israel, who has shown himself to be completely reckless when it comes to trying to deal with other nations. Look at what he has done in Gaza, and all under false pretenses. I think the hypocrisy that is being displayed by Israel, the United States, and the West should be very clear to all of us today. Israel is a nuclear power. So why shouldn't Iran, if it decides to spend its resources on building nuclear capabilities, be allowed to be a nuclear power? Why did the United States and Israel not protest against Pakistan or India when they were building its own? Why did the United States not shoot down North Korea that has been developing nukes? Nukes all over the place. So it's a question. We now live in a world in which might is right, and the most powerful nations now feel that they can threaten, the less powerful nation. But with regard to this very conflict, this is not the end. Let's just take it that in our lifetime, this is possibly another round one in which there was a real fight. They've been having this, back and forth.
Yes.
But this is the first time in which they have had a real fight. And we just wait, because if the Iranians will go back and begin to develop their nuclear capabilities, the Americans and the Israelis will come back again to fight.
Ambassador, there were concerns really if the U.S.'s action was going or was not going to lead to a third world war. But thankfully, here we are. But let's talk about what this means for Africa, which has citizens scattered abroad, whether it's in search of greener pastures or, for whatever reasons. And what do you consider priority for African countries at this moment? Should it be about citizens' repatriation or what?
No, it's not going to have a serious impact on Africa. Yes, it will affect African citizens either in Egypt, in Israel or in Iran. They will just be evacuated, and in a few months' time or weeks' time, they will return back to Israel or to Iran. This has always been the case. In terms of trade or our economic future, I don't think it will have any much impact. Look, I always say to people, let's be realistic with ourselves when we talk about Africa and the impact of some of these global crises. Particularly with Nigeria, we are the periphery of global development. And so most of the time, whatever takes place anywhere in the world does not really affect us when you come to think of it. Yeah, COVID affected us, yes, for obvious reason, because that was easy to spread. But in terms of this, it will not affect us one way or the other. Oil went up for a while, but look at what has happened. Oil has come down again, and that's the only impact it will have if we cannot, because I think our budget was based on 75 in terms of the $75 because of the oil. But now oil is selling less than $75. So that's probably the only impact it will have on us. We have to be realistic about where we are as Africa within the global community. We are not in the we are not in the middle. We are just at the periphery of global development.
But Ambassador,
and so whatever happens around the world does not affect us much, particularly crises like this.
Ambassador, we might not be in the middle, of the conflict, but then, just like you spoke about oil, for instance, it had its own impact on the economy. Since this war began, for some importers, there have been challenges bringing some goods in and moving things around, really. So for Nigeria as a country, what should we learn from what is happening, and for Africa in general? What should we learn? What things should we be investing in and on at the moment to be able to actually hold our own?
Somewhere in the 80s, there was a gentleman, Dr. Ladner, who worked with Professor Adedeji in the Economic Committee of ECA, Economic Commission of Africa, and UN agency. They were fond of asking this similar question. And one of those things they used to ask was, if there's a world war today, will Africa not survive? And one of the reasons why that question was always being asked was to encourage Africans to develop their own self-reliant development, to ensure that no matter what happens in the world, Africa will have the capacity to survive. But as of today, we've not done much in terms of that, because just like you rightly pointed out, we are still very, very much dependent almost on everything in the rest of the world. And so if the rest of the world collapses, invariably Africa would also, feel the impact. But as of today, with reference to this crisis going on in the Middle East, it will have no significant, not much impact on Africa, not indeed on Nigeria. Yes, our citizens might be affected. They will come back home or they will move to neighboring countries. And then when they think it's secured, they go back to where they live. Beyond that, look, oil will continue to flow, but not as high as we in Nigeria would have, would have wanted. Right. If the Hormuz Strait is not closed, trade will continue to flow, and then we'll definitely get some of the goods that we want, that we have paid for, that should be in Nigeria. So beyond that, the significance or the impact on Africa itself will be very limited.
All right, Ambassador. Former Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi. Thank you very much for talking to us on World Now.
Thank you. Thank you so much.